Hi everyone, it's Gretchen here. Gosh, it's been so long since I've gone live, I almost forgot what I was doing. Just getting everything set up here, and this is the first class, the first card, sorry, we're going to work on. So you can grab your envelope with those supplies. It's hopefully on the top of your pile. And you're going to need a stack of scrap paper to use as a cushion. So if you want to grab that. I put a whole bunch of new scrap paper in my bag now, and they don't want to come out. It doesn't want to come out in a nice neat pile. There we go. I was doing some cleaning. A stack of scrap paper. Which I had put in the supply list, but just want to make sure you caught that. Oh. All right. You know what? I just realized I don't think I told you. No, I think you're okay. If we'll face that when we get to it. Okay, so I think I scored everybody's cards for them. So you shouldn't have to worry about that, but I will go over it just in case I did not. This is Sapphire cardstock, so it is 4 and a quarter, was right the first time, by 11. And if it is not scored, you're going to put it on the dark side in your scoreboard, and you're just going to score at 5.5 on the 11-inch side. Then you are going to need, even if you, that's already scored, you are going to need your scoring tool, your stylus. And this is where you need your or your stack of scrap paper. And you're going to place the dark side facing you. And this is the front of the card. I guess it really doesn't matter until you do this step. And you're going to line up your ruler with the top right corner and the bottom of the score line. I know you can't see the score line. Well, you can a little bit in the camera. But so you're going to line up your ruler to those 2 points. The only caveat being that your tip of your scoring tool, now everybody's scoring tool is different, so yours might have a smaller tip than mine does. It does have a width to it. So when you line up your ruler with those 2 points, you want to actually put your scoring tool on the point, and then you want to push your ruler into that point. Because if you line up the ruler without doing this, and you just put the ruler on the 2 points, not accommodating the width of your stylus, you'll actually be not quite on that line. So, and then you're going to go ahead and just score a couple of times. And that's why you want the scrap paper, because you want it to have a little bit of give, and you'll indent into that scrap paper. Look at my scrap paper turn blue from the cardstock. And that gives you a little bit of an indent to create that score line. And then after that, you don't really need the scrap paper anymore unless you want it to work on or whatever. So we fold your card on the center score line that you normally would, but then you're also going to score on this diagonal score line. And this is what allows us to make an easel card. So you'll see it'll stand up like that. And we will put a little star in there later to help it stay open. All right. Okay, so you've got your triangle. Now to create this, you just cut your pattern paper the same size you would if you were cutting a whole, covering the whole front of the card, which would be 4 by 5 1/4. And then you go ahead and you cut on those diagonal. So if you were doing this at home, you would actually get 2 pieces so you could create 2 different cards. So we're going to put adhesive on the back of the red stars, and we're going to adhere that to the bottom triangle of the front of the card. And you should have about, it's actually about 1/16 of an inch around the 3 edges of your pattern paper. Okay. And then you've got your sentiment piece. And that's going to go up in the top left corner. And I put it about 1/8 of an inch away from the top and the left edges. And then you've got your 2 star pieces. Now, basically, these stars were just all printed in lines on the cardstock, and I cut a stripe of stars, single stars. So I just wanted to, mine are actually longer than what you need, but that's okay because that allows you to kind of put it under the sentiment. Now, I suppose if you glued that down really good, you wouldn't be able to pick it up, in which case you could just trim it, or you can just pick up the corner like I did, and you can decide, I'll trim it. So I'm going to hold it, I'm going to put this about 1/4 of an inch in from the fold of the card, and I'm going to cut off 2 stars off of mine. I just held it there and saw where I might want to cut it. And then I'm going to just put it right next to that sentiment square. Along the edge there. And now I'm going to look at the other one. The other one will be a little longer, so I think this one I'm just going to cut off 1 star. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it right next to my sentiment square. I didn't cut that straight. So, okay. And again, about 1/4 of an inch from the top of the card. And there we go. Okay, so this this stamp set, the Pinwheels here, they were, the shape is on one of the Close to My Heart Cricut cartridges. So I was able to cut out all the pinwheel shapes and then stamp on them. And because I did that, they do have that hole cut out in the middle. So you can just make sure your hole punches out. Oh, okay. From the middle. Now, I was short on cutting out a few of them. So this one I just cut with scissors, which quite frankly, I found easier to do in this case because the shape was so square. So I'm just punching out a hole in the middle of, but you guys should all have holes in yours. But if you need help punching them out, this is an 1/8 inch hole punch that has a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned off of it. Oh well, I'll worry about that later. All right, so you do want holes in all 3 of your layers because we're going to stack them up. Now, if you notice, the stamping wasn't so great on this one, and your stamping might be not so great on all of them, but they get covered up. Now this one, I had the red on top. Because I didn't stamp a great one, I'm going to put the yellow on top, but I tend to give mine the worst. I gave myself the worst ones and you guys the better ones. So hopefully yours look okay. And if it is a little not perfect in there, this ink pad of mine was going. So you can rearrange the layers to make it look better. Sorry, seem to be a little scattered today. Okay, so on the card, you'll notice that these pinwheels actually do spin. To do that, we want to have some space between each layer. And to do that, we do foam tape. But you can't actually stick it down, each layer down, if you want them to spin, because if they're stuck, they won't spin. So how I figured this out was to use foam tape, but to not take off the protective paper off of the top of it. So the middle of your pinwheel is covered by the next layer. So we're going to start with this blue one, the biggest one, and I'm going to put a couple of pieces of foam tape next to the hole. Don't cover up the hole. But you want to be in the center because, see, when you put the next layer down, you won't see that. And then you're also going to put it on the yellow, but I'm going to put mine on the red because I just said I was going to put the yellow on top to hide my not stellar stamping there. So whichever one is your second layer is the one you're going to put the foam tape in. So you just don't want to put it on your top layer. So there you go. So we have it on our bottom and our middle layer, and we are not taking off that green or white, whatever color your protective paper is. We're not taking that off. And this is actually smooth and shiny, so it actually helps the cardstock slide on it. So when you spin your pinwheel, it moves pretty smoothly. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to stack up our layers, and it doesn't matter what position they're in because they will move. And then we're going to take one of our brads. You should all have a little baggie with brads in it. And you're going to put through all 3 layers, and it might be easier to just put one at a time instead of trying to line up those holes. And then when you get them through the holes, you're going to open the legs. Gosh, that the legs on that one were just too short to go through 3 layers with foam tape. Okay, you're going to open up the legs, and there you go. Now, if for some reason you didn't want them to spin, you could go ahead and put that foam tape in, take the protective layer off, stick them down in the position you want them in, and then you're good. So there you go. Now we're going to attach it to the card, but when we put the adhesive on, we only want to put the adhesive on the part that is going to attach to this red triangle. Because as you see, when you prop it up, that has to be loose so it stands up. And so I'm going to look now. Decide where you want to place it, and then put the adhesive on. So I can see I can put adhesive on 2 blades of the blue, and then maybe a little bit on this edge of the blue. But I'm just going to put it on the 2 blades, because that way I don't have to be so precise when I'm attaching it. And when I attach it, I'm just going to make sure, actually I am going to add it because I'm going to move it down lower than I thought I was going to. And when I attach it onto the card, I'm just going to make sure the places that I put the adhesive on are on that triangle. And then it stands up. And I am wondering where my other star is. Hopefully you all have another star. If you do not, let me know. I hate when I do this because then I get nervous that I didn't put them in everybody's envelopes. Okay, I'm taking one from one of my other card kits, and hopefully we'll find it eventually. All right, so on this star, you definitely want to have foam tape because you need that height so that the edge of the card has something to lean against. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some small pieces of foam tape and put that on the star. I had another tiny piece, but obviously it flew away. And this time we are going to take the protective paper off because we do want it to stick. And you can play around with your card and decide, like if you wanted it way up, you know, or if you want it to come down a little. I put my star just right in the corner with only a tiny bit of space between. Oh, there's my star. Between the star in the bottom of the card and the star on the right side of the card. So now you have an easel. Whoops. And I have one that has the red on top and one that has the yellow on top. Hopefully that made sense. All right. All right, so the next one we're going to do is this one. On the color of paper is bluebird. There's a bluebird and a bluebell, and I constantly get confused as to which is which. But I wrote down bluebird, so hopefully I was correct about that. So again, I think I scored your cardstock. But if I did not, we're going to score on the dark side. And it's an 8.5 by a 5.5 piece of cardstock, which is standard size A2 card. And so on the 8.5 inch side, we will score at 4 1/4. Then we can fold and burnish. And the first thing we're going to do is put down the plaid paper. So that's the reverse side of the spread stars we used on the last card. And we're going to put that on the right side of the card, and you're going to have your 1/8 inch border at the top, the bottom, and the right side. All right, and then we're going to use our strip of red stars. And whoops. We are going to place that right next to the plaid paper. So butt it right up against the plaid paper. And then you will have a wider margin here of the blue paper, blue cardstock on the left. All right, so we're going to do the same thing to make the pinwheel, except on this one, The smallest pinwheel, I'm just punching out my circle out of my middle one. There was not a cricket shape for this one. So this one we actually have to cut out by hand, but it's not too bad. So we're just going to leave a small white border around it. Hope everybody's doing well tonight and enjoying being back in class. I do have a couple more planned. I've just been focusing on other stuff, so I haven't gotten to it, but I will soon. I've been trying to spread out the classes anyway, so they're the schedule isn't as demanding on anybody who has other commitments this summer. I know not everybody can take every class when there's so many close together, so I've been trying to spread them out a bit. All right, so, and then on this one, we are going to have to punch out the center since it didn't get caught on the cricket. So again, either find your 1/8 inch hole punch, and you can turn it, if it was cleaned out, you can turn it over and look through the hole to make sure I punched something sticky. What I did was on the sample cards, I actually put the foam tape through on top of the hole and punched through the hole. And then I realized you don't really have to do that. So that's why I told you to just put it next to it. But gosh, I can't find my tweezers. I know I just used them recently. Well, I'm going to have to get some Goo Gone on that. In the meantime, you can you can turn it over and look through the hole to punch. Or if you're good at aiming the other way, you can do that too. If you don't have an 1/8 inch hole punch, you can use an awl, which my awl is very short. All right, I'll use this one. So you can just punch through there with an awl if that's easier for you, or any kind of tool that has a point on it. If you don't have either of those things, you can actually take your brad and poke through there, and it'll probably poke through there just fine because it's not that heavy duty cardstock. All right. Get these scraps out of the way. All right, so my aim was not great on stamping some of these. They were not easy. Like I said, I had an easier time cutting them out, so I'm just trimming mine to make it look a little more even. It's just a nitpicky thing, which do not feel you have to do. Like I said, hopefully I gave you the better ones. I stamped a whole bunch of these, but I didn't always seem to get better at my aim. I don't know why they were so challenging. I mean, you wouldn't think the shape, some of the flower shapes and some which are kind of stranger shapes, it seems like those would be harder to line up, but for some reason I had a tough time with these. Okay, so again, we're going to do our foam tape trick, which is cut a couple of pieces and put them near the hole, near the center of the pinwheel. And we're going to start with our sapphire one that'll be at the bottom. And in this case, you can't rearrange the medium and the top one because they are different sizes. So the medium is going to be red. The red stripes. And I'm going to put foam tape close to the hole there. And remember, don't take off your paper on either of those. And then we don't need foam tape on the top one. So I'm going to take my brad and I'm going to put it through the top hole, and then the second one, and then the third one. And open the brad legs, make sure they're secure, and you should be all set. I should spin for you. All right, and now we are going to attach the pinwheel onto the card. In this case, you can put adhesive on the whole thing because the whole thing is going to be attached. One thing I do want to point out is that a couple of these cards here, you have 2 layers of foam tape, which might make them a little more difficult to mail. So you might, if you're going to mail them, you might want to put them in a padded envelope, or they might be cards you want to hand deliver. Another solution would be to only have 1 layer of foam tape so that only 1 layer spins, and you can decide which one you like better. But I do like the dimension of it, so hopefully that'll work for you. So the next thing we're going to cut out is the handle of the pinwheel. If you were holding your pinwheel, I'm going to take my bigger scissors out for this, just because it's a longer strip. And again, we're just going to cut, leaving a narrow white border. And this is a pretty, I don't think you get much easier than cutting out this piece. Now this is pretty skinny, so my adhesive is not going to fit on there without some manipulation. You can get it to work. So I am going to use my skinny 1/8 inch tape. Actually, I'm going to show you, if you don't have your 1/8 inch tape and you have your HEG, I'm going to go ahead and put it on, and you can see that the adhesive is wider than the paper. So I'm just going to take my finger and rub along the edges and flip the excess to the back. And that's one way to get around it. Another way would be to just use a very narrow bead of wet glue. All right, so I'm just going to stick this up under my pinwheel. And you do it at a bit of an angle, and you can do it wherever works for you. And then it's overhang the bottom of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut that in line with the bottom edge of the card. All right, so now we've got 3 stars. And again, only one of them came with a cricket shape to cut out. These guys did not. So we are going to go cut these out by hand. We only need 2 of them. Again, this is a pretty simple shape to cut out. So I do have this stamp set available if you want the one I use to stamp everybody's kits with. It's available for $5 if you want it. Just let me know if you want to make a whole bunch of pinwheel cards. It's an older set that I've had for quite a while, and didn't know the best way to use them, and then finally I just got inspiration. So as you know, most of my art supplies are retired now, so the only available ones are the ones that people are selling. Which there does seem to be quite a bit available, let me tell you. Everybody's got vast collections of supplies. Because you never know when inspiration's going to hit, right? All right, so now I've got 3 stars. And we're going to attach these with foam tape. All right. We're going to put the biggest one down first in the center. The only problem with putting all these little tiny pieces of foam tape on are then you have to get the backings off of them. All right, so like I said, we're going to put the middle one, the big one in the middle, and we're going to put it on first, and we're going to put it about a 1/2 inch up from the bottom of the card. And then when we put these two smaller ones on either side, we want them tilted and we want the tips to actually touch. Actually, I'm going to stick the tip just a tiny bit underneath the tip of the larger one. So can you see that? It's just under just a little tiny bit. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to put these bitty sparkles on there. So again, I'm going to tilt it to wherever I like it, but put that the tip of the star arm underneath the tip of the larger one. You could also put it on top. Doesn't matter as long as they overlap each other a little bit. And then we're going to put on our bitty sparkles. And I am going to just put a touch of wet glue in each spot where I'm going to stick these sparkles so they stick better. Just cleaning the tip of my glue. All right. So just a tiny dab. Because there is not much adhesive on these sparkles. So you're going to put it on the two overlapping tips, and then you're going to put them on the far tip, the opposite tip that's sticking up on the two smaller stars. And I'll show you that again in a minute after I put my sparkles into the glue. Whoops. Wanted to fall off there. These are not easy to pick up. Okay. So there you go. So we've got sparkle each of those tips and then on the outermost ones. So 4 altogether. And that is that card. All right, the next one is this long one, which fits in a regular business. Oh, excuse me. A number 10 business envelope. Now, on this one, we've only got 2 layers of pinwheels on each of them, on each of the 3 pinwheels. And then I punched, not stamped, I punched the edge of the cardstock with a border punch. And this is an EK Success punch. It was something I had bought at Joann's or Michael's back when they actually sold decent craft supplies. But I just thought it would be fun. So again, if your cardstock is not scored, this card originally started out as 8 inches by 8.5 wide by 8 inches tall. You see it's not anymore because I punched, but if you put the the solid side in your scoreboard, you would score at 4 inches. All right, then you punch the border punch. And I decided, do you see how this is loose? I figured, well, that's just going to get torn up. So I took my little scissors here and I trimmed off that arc. Sorry, I'm trying to hold it over a space where you can see it better. So now this one is less one arc than these two. And then I'm going to do that on the other side. So you're just going to cut along the this arch here to cut that off. Now on this side, because I tried to get these perfectly centered, but if you've ever used those border punches, not always perfect. So this one is a little loose too. So I said, you know what, I'm going to cut that one off too. And I mean, it's still a really pretty design. So I cut that there. And then I'm going to cut this one off too. Now this one is secure because again, it wasn't quite centered. So I just need to cut both edges of that. I'd rather have it symmetrical, even though this one technically doesn't need to be cut off. Okay, so now we've got a nice, in here, I'm just going to show you, put my red cardstock under here so you can see it better. So now we just have this nice rounded border along the edge. And it's just something different that we haven't really done a lot of. Years ago, Close to My Heart had a couple of border punches, which I really enjoyed, and I think I've used them here and there in classes. And I wish they had done more of that. But I think as they got into the Cricut and the die cut machines, and then the thin cuts, the different shapes, they did do some border thin cuts, but I never bought any of those. I was always a fan of the punches. They were expensive, but I personally felt they were easier to use. But so, just trying to put this so you can see them all. Okay, so to continue making this a little different, what I decided to do so you could really see that shape was to put paper on the inside of the card. So I really like this firework kind of looking paper. But you could use the flowers if you like. This is the Hello Darling, no G, paper pack that came out a year or two ago. And it's funny, my paper is too long. So if your paper is too long, I apologize. Yours probably isn't. I think mine I cut out from I needed another sheet. I needed to start another sheet. So hopefully yours is correct, but it should be 8 1/4 inches wide because the card is 8 1/2 inches wide. And that way, if you put it in there, you have your nice 1/8 inch border all the way around. So now when you're sending this card, obviously it'd be hard to write on this for anybody to see a message. So you could either put another piece of cardstock on here with your sentiment, or you can use the top of the card and be an original. All right. And then we're going to take our cranberry cardstock, and we're going to have the darker side up. And they're actually pretty close on this one, the difference in them. And you're going to kind of center it between the top of the punches and the top of the card, which is actually about 1.25 inches from the top fold. But you can eyeball it. Mine's a little long here. Actually, I shifted it a little to the right. So I'm just going to trim off that edge. All right. And then we can make our pinwheels. So we have 3 of the medium striped pinwheels. And we can go ahead and make sure the holes are punched out at the center of those. And those were cut out again with the Cricut, so you should be able to just take something with a point and the Cricut, or at least I should say the older Cricuts like mine. I've heard the newer ones are better, but the older ones didn't do a great job at cutting circles. The shape of the blade, it really had a hard time cutting a precise circle. And these, you can see these are not exactly round. So, and these are so tiny, and that's why they didn't really punch out well. And they have a little bit, they're more of dangling chads there. So, and then our smaller pinwheels, we are just going to cut out ourselves. I don't know if they designed the Cricut set or the stamp set first, but it would have been nice if they had both shapes. Although, considering how much trouble I had stamping the other shape, I don't know if I would have been even any better at this shape. When you use a thin cut, the ones, the metal dies that go through the Cuttlebug or the other die cutting machines, the non-electronic die cutting machines, you can either cut out the cardstock first and stamp afterwards, trying to line up the stamp on the shape, or you can stamp first and then line up your die cut over your stamped image, and then you kind of have to tape it into place so it doesn't move, and then cut them out. And everybody has their preference. I always liked cutting it out first and then stamping, which should mean I was better at the Cricut shapes, because on the Cricut, your only choice is to cut first and then stamp. Now, again, some of the newer technology, like the Brother Scan and Cut, I know you can scan your shapes and then cut them out. So you could stamp them first. So I suppose if you had trouble lining them up, that might be a preferable tool. And I will say that I'm not always in love with fussy cutting like this, or cutting out tiny designs. These aren't tiny, but I don't mind doing it once in a while. Like, I wouldn't want to do 100 of them, but I do know some people who find this really relaxing. All right. And then we're going to have to punch holes in those. All right. So let's put the, let's put the foam tape on all of the medium pinwheels first. I just have some smaller pieces that are already cut that I'm going to stick on there before I lose them. Right. All right, so then we are going to put the blue one on top of the yellow stripes. Do not remove your backing paper. See, I almost just did it because it's natural. The next step. Okay, we're going to put the red one on the light blue, and then we're going to put the dark blue on the red. So now we can put our brads through those. I haven't heard from anybody in a while, so hopefully you guys aren't having any problems. It's okay. You don't need to chat. I know your hands are busy, but I do try to keep an eye on it just in case. All right. All right, so now I have my three pinwheels done, and I'm going to put the center one on first. Okay, so I just want to point out that when I attach this, see, I have my angles. How to describe this? When I put it onto my red strip, I want two of the blades to be resting on that red stripe. They're not straight, they're on a diagonal, but both of them are fully on that red stripe. So now I put these on with foam tape. I put them on securely, both sides with foam tape, so the bottom one doesn't spin, because they would have banged into each other in certain positions if I let them spin. So I'm going to go ahead and put the foam tape, one piece on each of the outer blades, and then I am going to remove the backing paper and to attach it to the card. And I'm just going to center this. Actually, I'm going to put another piece of foam tape right in the center so it doesn't sag in the middle. Right over the brad there. So again, when I put this on the card, I'm going to have those two, I'm going to put it centered on the card. And you know the center of the card is basically here above this center half circle. And I'm going to center the two, center the whole pinwheel, and then put the two, like I said, the two blades opposite each other completely on that red stripe. And then you can turn your top one to whatever position you want. All right, so I'm going to do the light blue one next, which goes to the right. It doesn't matter, but and then one for the center. And then I'm going to put this one again. So the two blades are on the red stripe. I'm going to center the whole pinwheel on the space that's left between this point of this pinwheel and the edge of the card. And I'm also going to line up or place the blades in line, and I'll show you in a minute, so you can see that these are parallel to each other. The edge of this red blade and the edge of this blue blade are parallel to each other. And again, both opposite blades of the blue pinwheel are on the red stripe. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side with the yellow and blue one. So we're going to center the yellow pinwheel between the left edge of the card and the tip of the red pinwheel. And we're going to put the edge of those blades so they are basically, parallel to each other. So basically, the result to do that, the base pinwheels are all in the same position on the card in line. And then you've got your top ones that spin. These would be really cute if you were doing party favors or like cupcakes. You could make these. And in that case, I'd put the bottom ones back to back and have them on each side. So, if you turned around, turn the pinwheels around, there it would be some on either side. And then put a barbecue skewer through the center. And then you have either, like you could do place table name cards. Gosh, place setting name cards, or stick them in a cupcake. If you were doing a birthday party or a 4th of July party or just any kind of summer picnic or anything, I think those would be really cute. And of course, I used the red, white, and blue theme because that was the paper pack I used, but it would be cute with any color theme, of course. Gosh, I wish I made cupcakes for parties because that would be really cute. All right, so we've got our last card here. And I'm running out of space. So actually, I'm just going to move this one out of the way because I need some space to work. And if you needed to see any of them again, let me know. Or, of course, they're in the document I sent you with the directions. Okay, so this is a 5x7 card. Got a little nervous there for a minute. I saw my pieces were upside down and I was wondering if I had actually stamped on them. All right, so this is a 10x7 piece of cardstock. So if you needed to score, you would put the 10-inch side at the top, score it 5 inches, and you are good. The pinwheels were kind of large, so that's why I did some different size cards here. All right, the first piece we're going to put on is this stripe. And this was a repeating stripe on the paper, and I, cut that out symmetrically. So this we're going to put on the right side of the card. We're going to put it in about a little more than an eighth or so inches from the right side of the card. Basically, the card edge, the right edge there. Basically, put it in a spot where it looks good to you. Doesn't have to be exact. Then we're going to take one of our strips of cranberry cardstock. And again, we're going to have the darker side facing up. And it's hard to see the difference. That's the difference. The wider one is the lighter side, and this is the darker side. So if you get it wrong, it doesn't really matter so much. But I use the darker side. And now when I put this down, I'm going to put it to the left of the striped paper. And again, I'm going to use about 1/8 of an inch between the two strips. And, or, the width you used here. So if you used a little skinnier, then use a little skinnier here too. Then we're going to put the skinnier strip of cranberry cardstock down. Now this is 1/4 of an inch, so it is exactly the width of my tape gun here. So as much as you try to drive straight, never quite happens perfectly for me. So again, I'm just, like I showed you before, I'm just taking the overhang of the adhesive and with my fingers pushing it to the back of the cardstock. And if you don't get it quite perfectly, now I'm not vouching for every kind of adhesive, but the HEG tape is pretty good. Again, I'm going to put it to the left of the previous strip, the same spacing, about 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm just rubbing my finger next to it to remove any other adhesive that might still be there. The other thing you can do is, if your finger's not working for you, if you have a white pencil eraser, like on these lead pencils, you can use it, and that does a pretty good job of getting the adhesive off. Then you just have to wipe off the eraser shreds. All right, and then the last strip that goes on is these stars, and these stars are the same stars that we used on this first card. I just cut out now a 2-strip or 2-row wide strip. And again, we're going to put it to the left of the skinnier red strip with the same spacing. And then unless you put really wide spacing, you should have a wide white stripe on the left side of the card. All right, so let's go ahead and make our pinwheels first. And you know the deal. We're going to punch out the circles in the center if they didn't fall out for you. Really, you probably don't have to punch them out. When you stuck the brad through that circle, it's gonna punch through. But all right, so we're going to let's go ahead and cut out our smaller ones first, so they're all ready to go. I'm going to turn my light on because, again, it was bright in here when I started class, so I didn't think to turn my light on, but now I notice it is getting dark, and I don't want it to get totally dark on us before we're done. You can probably see much better now. I probably, even though it wasn't dark when we started class, I probably should have done that. I suppose if you were having a kids' party, you could probably, everybody could make their own pinwheel. Depending on how old they were, you could have them cut out and stamped for them. Or if they're a little bit older, they can do the stamping them and cutting themselves. All right. So we're going to make two pinwheel stacks here. All right, so I do want to show you on this card. If you notice my two-tone pinwheel, I had this idea that this is the one you have, this color. And I had this idea that you could stamp this really lighter blue and then color in the solid areas and have a two-tone pinwheel and add some extra color in there. Of course, you could still do that. I didn't love the look of it, so I decided I preferred the slightly darker blue and just have it the all one shade. But that's just an idea that I had. Once I put it together, I didn't feel like changing it. I thought I'd show it to you just to give you the idea. Which, you know, you can do with a lot of different stamps you have if you want, you know, to add different colors to a solidly stamped stamp. The other thing, I used an alcohol marker here. The other thing, maybe I would have liked to look better if I used a colored pencil. You know, who knows? The other thing we have to cut out are the sticks for the pinwheels. So we've got two of them here. This color of yellow or gold is called honey. Okay. Oh, and then you do have one of the smaller stars. That's the one I had left over from the other card. You might have one. That might be how I put them in the kits for you too. So make sure if you put that aside, dig that out and cut that out as well. All right. Oh, I'm still going to have to cut foam tape. All right, so first thing we're going to do is make our pinwheels. And we'll start with the large blue. And we will go ahead and put foam tape on that. And then the next one is going to be the light blue. And the piece on that is going to be the small red one. And we do have to punch our holes in our small ones we cut out. Okay. So grab a brad. Whoops. Don't drop it. And what did I say? The red, then the light blue, and then the dark blue. Okay. And then the other one is going to be just the red medium. So we need to put foam tape on that. And then the light blue small one. Put the brad through those. Okay. So the since we already have 2 layers of foam tape on the larger pinwheel, we're going to go ahead and attach that flat to the card. So you can go ahead and put adhesive all over the back of that. Right. And I put it on here at an angle. I have a tip here of one blade toward really close to the left edge, and I have the tip of another blade near the top of the card. Just notice that my red stripes are just a little bit longer than the card, so I'm going to trim those. All right, so I have that on there securely. Position my pinwheel blades. And then the other pinwheel, that's just the 2 layers, I'm going to go ahead and put foam tape on the back of that because that only has 1 layer of foam tape so far. Unless, you know, I already said these are a little bulky for mailing in a regular envelope without excess postage. Because there's 2 layers. If you really want to go for it, you can put as many layers as you want, and then you just really need a padded envelope and pay the absurd cost of postage these days. All right, so I'm going to put this one down to the right a little bit. I want to make sure that they can overlap a little bit because this bottom one isn't going to turn, but you certainly don't want to overlap them so much that, you know, these blades would bang into each other as they turned. Okay, so now we're going to put our handles on, and this time I am going to use my 1/8 inch tape. The other thing you can do is if you don't have 1/8 inch tape, you could take wider tape and cut a small strip if you wanted to. A narrower strip. One way to do that would be is if you have any sticker backing paper or adhesive, some kind of adhesive, you know, even wax paper might work, but like this kind of stuff. And if you attached it, stuck one side of the tape to it, the exposed size, then it's a little easier with a knife or with scissors to cut through it if you need to make it narrower. Putting the wrong tape away. All right. So I'm going to put the tape backing, pull the tape backing off, and I'm going to put one strip under each pinwheel. And you can put it wherever you think you like it. Now this one is too long for the card, so I'm just going to flip the card over and cut the excess length off. And then I'm going to put this one under, I'm going to try to stick that under the blade, the dark blue blade. And like I did on my sample card, excuse me, I'm actually just lining it up with the skinny red strip. It kind of seemed like the perfect positioning for me both times. Or on top of the skinny red strip. All right, and then we are going to put foam tape on our 2 stars and our sentiment square. Oops. Right. And we can stick those onto the card. I'm going to do my sentiment square first. And I'm going to put this in the bottom left corner of the card, about 1/4 of an inch from the left edge, the left fold, and the bottom edge. And then I've got my large star. I'm going to put it on an angle in the top right corner there. And then I've got my smaller star, which I'm going to put above the Let's Celebrate, again on an angle. And there we go. So those are our 4 cards. I'll hang out here for a second in case you have any questions. They were pretty easy, I hope. Oh, I was trying to figure out where I put the stamp set to show you in case you were interested. And didn't remember where I put it, but there you go. So it's the large, the medium, and the two different small pinwheel shapes, the 2 stars, and the handle, and then the 3 sentiments. So I didn't use the "Have a nice day" sentiment, but that's a nice one too. Oh, good. I'm glad you like them. I will be in touch. Look out for an email with another class. You know, Cheryl, I want to say there was another pinwheel set. It was different, but yes, you may have bought those. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I've got it. So, whoops. Get a hair stuck in there. I always have a hair stuck in everything. All right. So, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Have a good night.